I now call Jamie Greene to be followed by Claire Adamson, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Look, I'm going to start by saying I had pre-prepared a speech for today, but over the course of the afternoon I've sat and scribbled and rewritten pretty much the whole thing, and it might make more sense in a moment when you hear what I have to say. Like some of the other members, I'd like to start by sharing a story just to set the scene about why this debate is so important. I'm going to set the scene. It's a tale of somebody growing up in a tenement flat in a fairly atypical council estate in Scotland. The family has an unemployed alcoholic father who more than often will drink the benefits payment the day that it arrives, and a mother who cobbles together as many part-time jobs as she can to ensure that food is on the table, sometimes cash in hand. Dinner that night might be a pot noodle, or it might be a handout from a local church. There are problems in the household with addiction, there are problems with domestic violence, there are problems with depression. Are these problems the byproduct of their living conditions, or is it the other way round? I'll be honest with you, I don't know, and I wish I knew the answer. Many families on this estate, or scheme as we call them, are unemployed. And apart from black market or cash-in-hand jobs, there are households where a whole generation has not and never has worked. People live in each other's houses and they live in each other's pockets. Whoever gets paid that day is home to the rest of the close. You could call it a community, but it is also grimy, chaotic, and sometimes dangerous. The child in the house is often the only one who can't afford school trips, whose uniform is never quite as new as anyone else's, and who turns up to school hungry. The same person who had to walk to school rather than get the bus because they had no money. The same child who never goes on holiday when their classmates do. The child whose teachers know they're having a difficult time at home, but they are helplessly sympathetic. But no matter how bad school is, it is still not home. Now, I'm sure we can all imagine such a scene in our heads. It is normality to some people. And if you don't know anything different or anything better, you accept what you have because that's how it's always been. Presiding Officer, that story is the story of my own childhood. And I share it today with members because it's not a sob story. This isn't an X Factor edition. But I was taken by George Adams' speech today and sharing his own experiences of Paisley. Paisley's just a few miles up the road from where I grew up in Greenock. I want the Chamber to hear that story because I want to approach this subject with the gravest of attitudes and a heartfelt intention that we must get this right as legislators. So the Gibbs Hill estate in Greenock might have changed a lot since the 80s, but it still is sad that we're having this debate today. I shall.
Pauline McNeill.
First of all, may I commend the member on his courage to bring his own personal story, which I found quite emotional to listen to. And I don't want to detract from that at all, but today's Britain and the picture that's been painted about child poverty is one in which the child who can't afford the school trip is the child whose family are in work. And I just wondered if the member would also acknowledge that that is the picture that we need to kind of work out the answers to.
Jamie Greene.
I do accept that. And that's why I said, by sharing that experience, that my mother worked as much as she could, and we did have income. We weren't entirely reliant on state welfare benefits. So I do accept that there are families who are still struggling, even though parents are working. I do not detract from that whatsoever. The reason I mention it is because I think for me to stand up here today and be partisan in any way isn't the right thing to do, given the subject matter. And I have heard some contributions today, which actually I've been quite disappointed by, knowing the members. You know, the theme of Tory bad, SNP good, or this party good, this policy bad, I think doesn't do this subject any justice whatsoever. So, if I can, let me talk briefly about the bill in the little time I have. There are lots of words in it. There are lots of definitions and calculations, measurements, reports, and targets, and they're all very well and good. And indeed, they're the foundations of the bill. But only one section actually talks about the delivery plan. Now, it's not the job of legislation to define policy. That is a political decision, indeed, for the government of the day. But it's interesting to note that the Social Security Committee acknowledges that the setting of targets alone will not reduce poverty. Now, I'm new to the legislative process, so I don't pretend to know the answer on how a bill addresses the root causes of poverty. But surely it must be about more than just income levels and how to measure them, surely. Now, I don't have a problem with the concept of the bill, but it also says that the Scottish Government doesn't control all the levers it needs to improve the lives of everyone in Scotland. Well, in my view, education and health are devolved, and therefore I would like to see in later stages of the bill what has been done to, and I include things like closing the attainment gap, because good results at school do make a difference. I guarantee you I wouldn't be standing here today if they didn't. We may not have had money when I was a child, but we had books. How will the bill address the real problem of long-term worklessness in a home? How will the bill ensure that funding for the third sector or local authority services that tackle alcoholism or drug abuse or domestic violence, that their funding will be protected or will be in place? How will we ensure that grassroots activity to address poverty will be looked after? Now, will these just be in the delivery plan? And if they are, what recourse is available to us as a Parliament if these are not adequately and they're not independently measured? It's not just health and education that fixes the problem, just like it is not income that only defines poverty. I had much more to say, but I think in the spirit of the debate today, I just want to be clear that I have no interest in opposing for opposing's sake as we go through the stages of this bill, nor do I think that one party or another holds any magic wand that will eradicate it. There is goodwill and good ideas coming from every side, and I genuinely hope, and I do believe that this Parliament, even with our disagreements and our political posturing, can bring out the best of those ideas at stage 2, so that the end product is not just words on a paper, so that in 30 years' time, an SNP doesn't have to stand up in this chamber and share his story because there simply is no need to. Thank you.